So we have a lot of scientists up here, right? I know this geologist in town, and she was telling me last week about this rock formation. It's not just one rock. I love like one rock that I can climb, but she was telling me about this whole region with like a rise over here and a bump over there and oil under there, and how the mountains pushed in this way and the ground buckled in that way, and it was clear she knew what she was talking about, and she loved what she does, and rocks just made her so excited. Does anyone else get excited about rocks? Yeah, a few of you do. Yeah, that's great. Well, I don't understand, y'all. I don't get it. She looks at natural features, and she's amazed at what happened like 1 billion years ago, which sounds cool, but I don't understand anything about geology, and I don't understand how it happens or why it happened or what's going on in the rocks, and I don't see the things that she sees or you see. I do know it really excites her, and she's kind of exciting to me, so I paid a lot of attention to when she was telling me about rocks. Yeah. I'm not pushing it. So Frank Lutz told me something very similar one time, and I think he stole this line from Emerson, but after worship years ago, he comes up to me and he says, "That the point of your sermon? I don't believe that." You can hear Frank say that, right? I don't believe that. And then he says, "But I see how much you believe it, and so I really enjoyed listening to it." Same with the geologist. I can't relate to 1 billion years. I just don't get it. And I don't understand the science behind the creation of planets and rocks and weather and life itself. I get it that some things are old and special, and I find it interesting now what I can see in nature. I love all the things that you read in the Psalms. And I make lists of the flowers that I find, and I love hiking up mountains and looking at that, but way back over time, understanding that story of how it came to be, and understanding when people say, "Oh, look at that," and "Can you believe that?" And I wonder about some of you are amazed at the beauty and complexity and order of the universe on a way different level than I am. And I'm in awe of your enjoyment and your appreciation, as much as anything to do with the chemistry and biology and astrophysics in there. Now, some of you might not call that God, and you might not consider your amazement prayer per se, but for me, that's the only category I know where to put it. When something just takes your breath away and lifts you above the normal rhythms of life and touches on something that puts your life in deep perspective, we say, "Wow," we say, "Holy cow," we say, "Oh my." Exactly.
OMG.
So I'm going to dial it down a few million years. For me, and for some of you, even if I can't quite wrap my head around all the eons there, I do get really excited about the origins of humankind and how we've become the creatures and the cultures that we are. And when I think of, for thousands of years, how people that are more or less like us have figured out all these great ways to live, and so often asking the same questions about how we got here and what matters, that stuff takes my breath away. That's what interests me a lot. So, for instance, you all know the story of Noah. Boat, rain, cleansing and justice, new life, right? And many of you know that there are other stories about floods about 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 years ago, even before the Bible was written. All the people in the Middle East and that area, they all had stories of floods. And they wrote down these stories, and they asked about the meaning of existence and what that flood matters to them, and how it shapes their future, and what it implies about some deeper dimension of life and fairness and healing and sin and punishment and hope. In fact, just about the oldest piece of writing, almost the oldest piece of writing that we have, probably written down just about the very same time that humans started putting any stories down on rock or sand or paper, one of the oldest pieces of language that we have at all is about preparing for a flood. And it doesn't have a god, it doesn't have a rainbow, it doesn't have a dove, it doesn't even have a man in it. It's just this fragment that lists what to put on a boat, not animals 2 by 2. But if you were getting ready to go on a boat, just think about what would you be on your list? Let's see, I would do it. In this list, it says, bring some bushels of grain. Okay, that's good, some food. Bring some olive oil. That's smart. You should do that. And bring some kegs of beer. Yes, it does. Kathleen's doubting me here. It does. One of the oldest pieces of literature we have says bring some beer. And to that, I say, hallelujah. That is, yes. And that's the oldest precursor to Noah's story. Now, for those of you who have read Noah's story in the Bible, and you always wondered, there's this postscript at the end where after they land, Noah gets ripping drunk and passes out. And you wonder, what does that have to do with the story? I wonder what that has to do with the story. Maybe our ancestors figured out long, long, long ago that you can never quite wash away all the brokenness in the world. And maybe there's not these clear lines between joy and trouble. And they knew so long ago that it's a mixed up world between loss and grief and hope and new beginnings. And how amazing that we carry with us into every life and every storm and every step back towards stability and new life something of our past. Now, for those of you who have not read Noah's story, because silly myths, we're scientists up here and we don't believe in that nonsense, I wonder how you feel about the discovery about 2 decades ago that there was an ancient coastline at the bottom of the Black Sea, 300 feet down there. That's wild, isn't it? And then the subsequent geology that looked at the rocks and the water and said, look at this, there was a rock slide and a flood about 7,000 years ago. That's what the lake is. It's a flood from a rock slide in there. There was a flood at the same time that people started writing down their stories. And the flood is what shaped their sense of human life at the time. I think that's amazing. I think that our stories that we've carried on, that's based on real history, is pretty amazing. So I don't know what my geologist friend's going to think about that, but we'll find out when she listens to this sermon. So for some of you, 7,000 years ago, still, I can't touch it, too far away. For some of you, you want to dial it back down to, I don't know, 106 years? Maybe 106 years. And of course, this church is formally 106 years. Before that, there were still people worshiping and doing Sunday school. Basically, the history of Nederland is let women handle things and they get it done. Men get out of the way. We can have churches. We can fix things. And that's what it was before this building was here, is women led Sunday schools and led church. So 106 years ago, for some of you, God's hand is most clear, not just in the mountains and the butterflies and the dewdrops, but in us. For some of you, the light of God shines most brightly when love dances across your personal lives. When love is embraced, maybe organized in a community, maybe disorganized by the beauty of letting go. When love tells its own history in one place, we say, wow. For instance, obviously, when we look at the history of this church, you see how God has blessed us, and how God has blessed this community through us. Now, these are stories that carry us here, and there are stories, some people might not call that God. Okay, that's your prerogative, even in church. But certainly for some folks, the tears of meaning, and the sighs of realizing how we fit into a neighborhood, and the joyous appreciation for being a small part of something that lasts forever with grace and beauty. You might not call that prayer, but I don't have a better word for it. So for all our failures and stumblings as a church, for all the missed opportunities and the misunderstood grace, thank you, God, for choosing this place to be a little hint about your dream for humankind and all creation. What a sense of strength, even in this small corner of a grand world, to be part of such a long and meaningful story. Yeah, but 106 years. I mean, none of us are 106 years old. Some of you are getting close, but history, we can't handle history that much. God's real miracle, some of you think, is right now. Seeing people right here, feeling the grace of second chances, embracing the beauty of life, leaning into a more compassionate relationship with their neighbors. For some of us, the most awe-filled part of life is seeing love in action. Now, our motto, you can see the extended version of it on the front of your bulletins, but when it was originally there, it was open minds, open hearts, open doors. Here's a little sneaky idea about the way the world works. Maybe you disagree, maybe you don't, but it takes my breath away. Have you ever noticed that those with the most open minds tend to develop more open hearts? And those who open their hearts a little bit tend to have doors that open a little wider for people who might be different than them. And those who open doors to people who are different than them, people who come in, tend to open their minds. It goes in a cycle. Open minds, open hearts. Open hearts, open doors. Open doors, open minds, etc., etc. So it's possible you just come here for Daniel's music, and this week, thank you, Vera. It's possible you just come here for good friends. Awesome, there's a lot of them here. Or maybe you don't go in for any of the religious mumbo-jumbo that we do here, but then you come and you smile when you see the children excited. Then you come and you feel strangely warmed when you notice adults who are still rejuvenated and excited by their faith. Maybe you're grateful that there's somewhere in this divisive world where so many people can gather. You might not call that God, and you might not think your warm, spiritual but not religious heart is prayer, but on my guess, that's precisely what I think it is. Just being here in the calm excitement of what happens between any designated religion, the Spirit moves in mysterious ways, maybe even in your heart, through simple awareness of what matters. So is God more amazing in the past, or the present, or the future? For some of you, the deepest prayer of awe that you could ever imagine is if your heart or if the power of the world could somehow take real steps to commit to a future of hope. Because we carry baggage, and for all the baggage we carry, for all the real brokenness that surrounds us and chokes our society, how amazing when anyone can release their chains. How amazing when someone can rise to fresh breath. How amazing to see real movement toward forgiveness and freedom, toward peace and justice. Whatever wonderful things have happened over millions of years, or thousands of years, or dozens of years, or now, whatever remarkable things are happening in our midst, let us build on that wonder and take hold of the light that still shines forward. For all the strength that has brought us here, let us take hold of the power and take hold of the courage to keep making a difference in your life and in the world. For all the truth and beauty that has been unveiled over the course of time, let us hold on to whatever small opportunities there are to keep sharing love in this world. Thank you, God, for what has come, amazing as it is. And thank God for the prayer of all that takes us to a future of hope. May it be so.